Hey guys, so coming out of the Lucian fight, before I lose most of my memory on good tips for you, I wanted to make this quick video. I want to call it a look back, but in the business world we would call it a debrief. But um, let me just get out everything I have on my mind to help anyone else out that hasn't done the Lucian fight before. Probably many people have at this point in the season, but there's a lot of videos out there that don't tell you certain things. So let me hit you guys with what I think is going to be super valuable for you, and just close out with that. So the first thing that I did wrong in my Fury Druid build was I used my Uber Tristram build, and that Fury Druid basically with a 5-socketed Hellslayer, shelled out with the Jalals and standard PDR armor, basically like slaps the whole game, right? Like I don't do tier 0 or Rathma or declone with it. Obviously, the Trapper is just so much better for that, but he's just so strong. I was so confident going into the Lucian fight the first time that he would like totally kick his ass. And like 2 minutes into the fight, I wasn't really sure if I should focus on portals or focus fighting on Lucian because you don't realize, but most of the other tier 0 fights, the boss health meters go down when you hit them. And in Uber Tristram, you have your mercenary usually proccing like amp for you, which is a huge help, which as soon as you lose that in a Lucian fight, you're like, oh my god, I'm not doing any damage. And then in the other fights, I haven't went in with the Druid, but the Trapper, they take the boss's Rathma Uber Declone's life down considerably, like pretty fast. So you'll notice in the Lucian fight, if you've never done it before, you get some hits off and you're like, oh my god, after like 2 or 3 minutes, you're like, I've barely done enough damage to him in 3 minutes, and you end up, trying to focus on the portals, and then you get confused. You're like, should I be focusing on portals or should I be focusing on Lucian, because like his health is pretty high still and I'm losing pots, kind of focusing portals. So the first fight's a little confusing, and the first thing is you'll want to make sure you're doing the good damage. The second thing is you'll want to realize Lucian's life pool is considerably bigger if you haven't done any tier 1 bosses than any tier 0 Uber Tristram build. So yes, you still need to focus on the portals, and you do need to be killing them, and you do need to be hitting Lucian, but the reality is Lucian's life takes some time to chip away at. So it's a good thought to understand, are you doing enough damage, but also be aware that it takes time to kill him. Okay, the next part is, along with that damage piece, you need to know what builds can actually do Lucian. Like, you think your build is great because you've been using it through most of the game, but the reality is not every build can really do Lucian. So the way that I figured out what builds can do Lucian, besides looking at the PD2 Discord Uber attempts and looking at people that won or did tier 2 Lucian, was I started going to the PD2 site here, which I'm showing on the screen, and going to Heroes. And this is the best way to see or look up the builds that have actually killed Lucian. And they're great because it's divided by class and hardcore versus softcore. So the first thing I noticed when I went over to hardcore and looked at the Druids, which I was basically determined to fight Lucian with my Fury Druid, is you don't see that many hardcore players here. and I looked at softcore too, but when you start looking up the Lucion builds in the armory for your build, you'll notice what's the primary build. I want to say like 80% of these are rabies druids, which or rabies or poison creeper, right? I think that's a lame build. I mean, I don't knock anyone for using the builds that work. It's used on tier 2 Uber Diablo and stuff, but right, it goes to show you really the difficulty level you're setting yourself up for fighting Lucian. So if you have 80% of the class with one build that's fighting Lucian with that build, I don't want to say it's easy, right? But like, yes, likely your Lucian fight will be more effective, efficient, and achievable. When I found my first build that I wanted to copy with a Fury, not a Fury Druid, a Werebear with Maul, it was McFury 2, and there wasn't many other, or just a couple of other Maul builds. He might actually be the only one. The other thing I know about the Druid class, at least, is the other viable build looks to be Fireclaw. I thought the Maul was so cool, though, especially McFury 2's build. I decided to go with that. Now, having that, it wasn't the easiest build, and it's probably a great build. Softcore is easier maybe to get some of the items or stronger items needed, but it was definitely a harder option. More or less recently, like I said in the other video, I saw another Werebear Druid using the Ursa's Helm, and that was probably a better option than the Cerebus from this McFury 2 build. So, look up your build, look up which builds work. If you're playing softcore, it might not matter. If you're playing hardcore, you definitely want to set yourself up a little bit more for success. You can lose a lot, and it's really a lot of cost to go into the Lucian fight in terms of getting your gear. Okay, moving on from that, you can look at the builds, you can see what items they use. I don't want to bring up anyone in particular here, but let's just take a look. I really didn't want to do that, but take a look at one of the armories here so I can just throw some pointers out to you guys. You'll notice here that most of the builds probably look like this, right? They most likely have a Plague Bearer, Titan's Grip, Storm Shield, or something rather equivalent. I know they almost all have Brambles, right? So the gear in these slots are typically best in class. There might be one or two options, but the reality is if you're going to tier 1 boss or tier 2 boss or do this Lucian fight, you have to get the best in slot gear. You can't really throw gear together in ways that you would do most of the other game, because the gear actually has specific things that are usually innate to it, which help it really succeed in the fight. I don't want to talk about this particular rabies build because, I didn't use a rabies build. I can show you guys my armory, and I know I talked about it in the last video. But the one thing that I want to tell you about this is, and Cuck said it well to me, is you can't just throw your gear together. You really need the best in-slot gear. Like I said, certain things have certain attributes, like this Halbert's Reign has the PDR, has 2 max barbarian skills plus 2 mastery skills, right? So the point is, like, stick to the best in slot gear as dictated by the builds that have completed Lucian. The other thing is trading for this gear. if you don't have that much currency, it can be very difficult to get the gear for the build, depending on which build you choose. Some of the builds are in high demand just because they're working for Lucion fights, people are using them. So, you're going to have to be cost conscious. I think one of the reasons that I failed is I didn't, buy the Wisp for the first time because it was so expensive, especially a couple weeks earlier in the season. But you have to get the stuff. You have to. Don't risk the fight without almost every single item, and really every single item you need. Okay. Aside from trading from items, life. I know I mentioned life in my last video, but you really need to have, I want to say, 4,000 life. Now, that's a lot for some classes. It might not be true for every class, but the reality is the more life, the better. You do need to focus on your damage and other things, but you need to have life. As I mentioned, you need life, and usually the means of getting that is through items with max percentage life, or jaw ruins, or corrupts with max life. In addition to life, obviously, right, you need max all your reses. You need 90 max lightning res, and you need a big PDR, physical damage reduced by percentage, and this is where you kind of get pigeonholed into big PDR armors. So there's not a lot of options there. I mean, yes, you can have crafted armors, but you basically need PDR 25 plus on an armor, and you're going to need max light res. So Shaft Stop's a good option, has a lot of life. Leviathan is good. It can't go to 30 max physical res, but you get a lot of extra strength, which could save you from using points on other things. There are other things like the belts, right? The Dungos is usually probably much better than a string of ears because this has a lot of life on it. In addition, I don't have one on here, but a BK ring does have physical damage reduction. I know a lot of us don't like to lose the Raven's Frost because we're so nervous about not having Cannot Be Frozen. The Wisp, like I said, is necessary, but in terms of life, you really don't have, or physical damage reduction, you don't have that many places to get it. So you need it on the belt and the armor at a minimum, and most likely you're going to need it on the helm. Okay. What else can I tell you? I think for now, that's mostly it. That should give you a quick rundown on what builds work by looking at the heroes in the armory. You can watch some videos in the D2 Discord on Uber attempts, PD2 Discord on Uber attempts. You can go to the armory and look up certain builds to identify which ones you want to shoot for or copy. You can, as when you find a build that you want to copy, make sure you save it. I think there should be, when you go to like an armory lookup, like I was on mine, there should be a way to snapshot the armory here in the save build. So make sure, like some of the builds, people change their builds or take off their bossing gear, but if someone just puts like an Uber attempt, go and snapshot their build, or just be mindful that they can change. If you're looking up someone from the heroes and you look up their armory, just be knowledgeable that it might not be what they have on or had on during the fight. Okay, also, right, I said life, big life, 4,000 is amazing. You need to get that through percentage life items, Druid, Ursa's Helm, Barbarian, Doombringer is a good option. Jaws, corrupts, charms, right? You need small life charms. Yes, you need them, 100%. Skills, certain skills, right? You want to be using those skills that help you compound or add to your life. High vitality, any analysts and hellfire torches. You most likely, many of the builds will rely on having some type of all res skillers, in addition to all res charms and separately skillers with life. They're expensive. You know, I'm usually a thrifty person. I really wasn't crazy about spending all this and trading for so many things. Like I kind of like to go through my season not trading that much. Not that I don't do it, but the reality is if you're planning on bossing, especially tier 1 bosses, you have to trade. There's no way you're going to find this stuff, or all the stuff in particular. You don't have to buy the most expensive things like this Doombringer, just happen to have 4 sockets. You know, find the things that have the right stats on them, like max increased life here. You don't have to buy the most expensive things. Having that said, like I could have probably slammed my Annie for higher Veet, but you know, you'll burn your currency if you don't spend it wisely. Also recapping, trading for these items that are in demand, difficult, right? Give you guys a tip on trading. Go to trade, look for something, and set your filters. Once you set your filters by going to the trade, typing in an item's name, we'll do cranium basher, and setting the applicable filter options. Okay, that wasn't a good example. You click expand on filters here. You type in a name. You hit save. Great. You go to your filters. It's here. You connect your Discord through going to your profile, and I don't want to show you guys that, but and click auto notify. You will get a notification when that item becomes available. This is a great way to see new postings. In addition to trading tips, you can click a listing, and after you bid for a listing, you can see at the bottom here, right where my cursor is, if anyone else has bid for the item. So you might want to check it if you're really relying on getting that one item. The other thing is, you know, you can't give everybody their max value for their trade. You just can't. Like, you won't have the currency unless you like play the game so much, and you don't need to buy the most expensive thing. So it will take time for you to find the right seller, and for the right seller of item to find you as the right buyer. Just because something's not on the site doesn't mean there's not somebody in the game. Make a game, map in it, sit in it with the game name of what you need, and give a decent price. If you're not getting what you want for a price, you'll have to raise your offering. But the reality is, you don't want people to take your trades on your first offer, just as much as you don't want to sell them for what the first offer is. So find a middle ground, and just go slow. Know that it takes time, and know that you don't need to always meet somebody at their asking price or even in the middle. But if you're not getting what you need, don't settle for a different item. You need the item. You're gonna have to get it, but you know, just keep at it. Okay, trading. We talked about life. We talked about a little bit about damage, physical damage reduction, builds. In the last video, I talked about certain breakpoints. I think that's most of the stuff coming off my head about the Lucion fight. Mechanics wise, I said you'll get into the fight, you won't have your mercenary, As a note, you can't use Werebear's Hunger in there or any other place, bossing place. You'll have to focus on killing the portals so that the smaller adds don't keep spawning indefinitely. After you kill the portals, you'll focus on doing damage to Lucion. The most important thing is to dodge the Novas. If you don't have high life, like 3.5 to 4K, and you don't have 90 PLR, max lightning res, and you don't have any kind of lightning absorb, that Nova will kill you. So your most important thing is like, look for Lucian, know where he is. When he goes to the middle, go directly. Don't even fight an ad. Stop what you're doing. Go to the farthest part of the map that looks like it's going to be open and sit there. Don't do anything. If it looks like you're going to get hit or you're on the edge, just pot anyway. The next thing is the white snaking lightning on the ground that I talked about that you'll see. That's pretty predictable. If it's going towards you, or if you're fighting an ad or a portal or Lucian and it's coming your way, get away from it. If you're in the middle of a Nova and it's coming your way, be very careful, right? Like, just move very tiny, but like, don't take the Nova instead of the white snaking lightning. But don't risk it too close either. So it probably won't happen too much. But if you do have like low life and you're kind of like winging it on hardcore and that comes your way, it's definitely going to be a concern. One shot isn't too bad, but it can hit you twice and there adds along the way. Aside from that, mechanics wise, I know some builds focus on max block, but I think that's for the most part it. You want to make sure as you're trying it for the first time that the portals are going down in good timing. So if it takes a couple of seconds, that's kind of okay. If it's taking you too long and the portals are building up faster than you can put them down, like, it's okay to have like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 portals on the screen. But if you have like 10 portals on the screen and ads are in your way and you can't really get out of the way of the lightning, you probably stop the fight if you're in hardcore, save and exit. Aside from that, mobility is another thing. Like, certain classes don't have a teleport ability. So some of them do, some of them have limited teleport, like the assassin has dragon flight but can't just put you wherever you want. Necro has blood warp, but some of these classes, they don't really have that. They might have like a fast run walk, but the ads could get in your way. So you might want to obviously bind, just run to left click, and just be aware, right? Like, if you're fighting on the edge of the map and for some reason ads are kind of grouped up on you, or they're surrounding you and you're not beating them down fast enough, like you could get stuck in the Nova, right? Like, as soon as it comes, you have like a very short window. It's usually comfortable enough, but it could happen, right? You could get caught. All right, I think that's mostly all the information I wanted to get over to you before it leaves my mind. I have an interview tomorrow. I'm sure I'm going to forget most of all my learnings from fighting Lucian this season. So I did want to at least tell you guys and transfer knowledge. Maybe a couple other things I can mention is it doesn't seem like there's any poison damage. It does feel like there is cold damage and fire damage. So, I mean, you don't need to max cold and fire, but you will want to have at least one thing on with 2 max res. If you can fit other things like 4, that's great. Some characters, or particularly the paladin, is nice because he has the skills where lightning resist can increase your maximum resist. So, and the other thing. So you probably want to use that sparingly, but if it happens to fit in your build, it's a nice quality of life. Other than that, I think that's as much as I can help you. You do want max cold and fire res though. Just trying to scan my memory for anything else. I think that's good enough. Alright guys, hopefully my rant here helped you. It was a lot of learning, not just learning, but hearing people or reading people say things, and being a little bit thick-headed or not focusing enough on some of the smaller details, and then kind of going back and realizing, wow, that's important. That one comment that one person made like makes a big difference. So not only if you're planning on doing this, will you have to learn this stuff, and some of you guys are great at the game and some of you are learning like I am, but give yourself time to think about what I've said, what others say, and best of luck to you guys on your fight. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a comment. I obviously don't know everything, and the other guys are much more knowledgeable than me, but if I know, I'll respond. All right, guys.